So I think both the JBL Partybox 520 and the Sony ULT Tower 9 are the perfect size speakers. They're big and loud enough to the point where you never ask yourself, what if you got something bigger, or what if you got a second speaker? But they also aren't overkill to the point where you start to regret your purchase. But today we're going to see how the JBL Partybox 520 compares to the Sony ULT Tower 10, which is an extra large Bluetooth speaker, which I actually think sounds better than the JBL Partybox Ultimate, and it's a lot more affordable as well. Regarding pricing, these speakers are closer than you'd think. The JBL Partybox 520 retails for almost $900, whereas the Sony ULT Tower 10 retails for $1,200, and the Sony ULT Tower 10 does like to go on sale on a regular basis. However, these speakers are very different from one another. Nonetheless, if you want to pick either of these two speakers up, they will be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button. And if you want to further support the channel, then you can always pick up some merch. So first, we have to talk about the design and portability of these speakers, and most importantly, the built-in batteries. Now, the Sony ULT Tower 10 does not have a built-in battery. You can only use the speaker while it's plugged in, obviously affecting the portability of the speaker. Whereas with the JBL Partybox 520, this speaker does have a built-in battery. Now, the 520 has an advertised battery life of 15 hours, which is very impressive. However, this advertised battery life of 15 hours is with the speaker playing at 40% volume, which is already a really good listening volume. But that's with the light feature turned off and the bass boost feature turned off as well. And in general, battery life on this speaker really varies depending on how you use it. If you use it at a higher volume, or with the light feature turned on or off, or with the bass boost feature turned on or off, all of that is going to affect your battery life. But real-world use with the speaker playing at 60% volume, with the light feature turned on, and with the bass boost feature turned on, for me, it's been good for around 8 hours of playback time. And honestly, anything above a 60% volume while indoors with either of these two speakers is going to require hearing protection, and anything above 80% volume is just telling the neighbors that you really want them to enjoy your music, and at max volume, that's just going to get you a visit from the cops. But the really cool thing about the Partybox 520 is, just like with the 320 and 120, you can quickly and easily swap out the battery on the speaker. So if you want, you can get multiple batteries and keep the party going, or if you ever get to a point where your speaker can no longer hold a charge, instead of having to get a completely new speaker, all you need to do is just get a new battery, which is going to be great for the overall investment of your speaker. However, the battery on the 520 is much larger than the battery found on the 320 or the 120, so you can't mix and match batteries here. However, if you were to get the JBL Boombox 4, then you will be able to mix and match batteries with the Partybox 520 because they're going to be using the same large battery. And to charge this speaker, it charges via a double-barrel AC port, and when you use this speaker while it's plugged in, you are going to get a performance boost out of it. It is going to get louder, and you are going to have more bass. Now, it's not going to get as loud as the Sony ULT Tower 10, but it is a boost. So, thanks to the Partybox 520's built-in battery, this speaker is a lot more portable than the Tower 10. Also, the 520 is significantly smaller than the Tower 10. It weighs in at 56 pounds, plus it also has built-in wheels, so you can easily roll this speaker around. And thankfully, these wheels are super chunky, so the 520 is still easy to roll in, let's say, a parking lot, or in the sidewalk, on a grass, or even on a thick carpet. Now, the Tower 10 also has built-in wheels, but these wheels are tiny, so you can really only roll this speaker on a hard surface indoors. If you're going to try to roll this speaker on a sidewalk or in a parking lot, it's really not going to work. So overall, the JBL Partybox 520 is a lot more portable. However, I do feel that it is preferred that you have help if you're going to carry the speaker up and down stairs, or if you're going to load it into your car, so that you don't damage the walls in your house, the car, or the speaker itself. Whereas with the Tower 10, you are going to need help to carry this speaker around. But when it comes to durability, both of these speakers have a mostly plastic body, which can get scratched very easily, and they both have a thin middle grille on the front, which can get dented easily as well. So you do want to be careful with both of these speakers. However, the JBL Partybox 520 does have an IPX4 water resistance rating, whereas the Sony just doesn't. So in general, I do feel that if you plan on using your speaker by the pool, I would recommend the JBL because of the water resistance rating, but also the control panel on the JBL are using physical buttons. So even if your hands are wet, you're going to be fine because these control buttons are still going to work. Whereas the Sony is using a capacitive touchpad up top. So these buttons are going to work as well if your fingers are a little wet, either from the water in the pool or something else. But then there are the light features on these speakers. Now, I think the light feature on the Sony looks good, and I really like that it has floor lights, and these floor lights have a large area of effect. So it really gives this speaker a very large presence, especially at night. However, I do feel that JBL's light feature is more impressive and dynamic, and it's a lot more visible by comparison. But also with the JBL, since this speaker is using Auracast, you can pair it up with JBL's party lights, and you can build out your light feature if you want. But like I said on the full review, I do wish that the JBL Partybox 520 had floor lights like the JBL Partybox Ultimate. Nonetheless, if you do decide to use this light feature, that is going to take its toll on the battery life. But then there are the ports on these speakers, and this is another area where JBL just beats the Sony. First off, the JBL is using XLR combo jack, so you can plug it into a mixer, making it great for someone that might want to moonlight as a DJ. Whereas with the Sony, you can use it with a mixer, but you're either going to have to use the audio jack connection or a Bluetooth connection. It works, but having those XLR inputs on the JBL Partybox 520 is just more solid. But more importantly, with both of these speakers, you can plug in a microphone for karaoke, or you can plug in a guitar. However, with the JBL, you can plug in 2 wired mics, whereas with the Sony ULT Tower 10, you can only plug in 1 wired mic. But the Sony ULT Tower 10 does come included with its own wireless microphone, so you can get it to work with a total of 2 mics, just like with the JBL Partybox 520. Now, with both of these speakers, you can go in and add in an echo if you want, which is really good so that you can hide just how bad you are at karaoke. But I do feel that the microphone on the JBL Partybox 520 is better because you can also adjust the sound of your microphone by either adjusting the bass, or you can also go ahead and adjust the treble on your microphone. Whereas with the Sony, you can't adjust the sound of your microphone. But also, with both of these speakers, you can use them with wireless mics if you want. And JBL has its own wireless mic system, and Sony has its own wireless mic system. Now, personally, I do feel that JBL's mics sound a little better, and this microphone also does a much better job of not getting any noise pollution when you're actually handling this microphone. However, the weird thing with the JBL's wireless microphones is that the microphones themselves have an advertised battery life of 20 hours, but the receiver only has an advertised battery life of 12 hours. Whereas with the Sony, both the microphones and the receiver have an advertised battery life of 20 hours. So I do feel that it just makes the Sony a little easier to use. But with the Partybox 520, this speaker has a USB-C port, which you can use to charge your phone, or you can also use it to charge your mics and the receiver, and you can also use this USB-C port as a wired connection with your phone. Whereas with the ULT Tower 10, this speaker has a USB-A port, which I don't feel is as convenient, but you can plug in a USB stick and play music off of it if you want. But with both of these speakers, you can still use them with a wired connection because they still have an audio jack. However, the Partybox 520 also has an audio out jack, so if you want, you can always daisy chain the speaker up to any other speaker, regardless of size or brand, and get them to play in sync. Now, the Sony doesn't have this, but it does have an optical port, so if you want, you can connect the speaker up to your TV and use it as a soundbar, and I also feel that this is a super useful feature, especially if you don't have a very premium sound system or soundbar connected to your TV, and you want to have big sound because you have friends over to watch the game or watch the fight. But when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, both of these speakers can be connected to 2 devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. Latency is not an issue for either of these 2 speakers, so you can use them to watch videos with on your phone. But when it comes to audio codecs, the JBL Partybox 520 only has support for SBC and AAC, whereas the Sony has support for SBC, AAC, and LDAC, which is Sony's own in-house high-res audio codec. Just keep in mind that if you do want to use LDAC, you do have to be an Android user because iPhones top out at AAC, but regardless, the Sony still sounds great, even with AAC. And if you want to further support the channel, then check out our affiliate partner, Coinbase. I have been exclusively using Coinbase for the last 5+ years to invest in crypto, and I have had zero issues with them. And if you sign up by using the link down below, you can get up to $200 in crypto. Coinbase makes it very easy for you to buy crypto like Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, and so on, and you can now use Apple Pay. Again, thank you to our affiliate partner, and sign up by using the link down below to get up to $200 in crypto. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about sound. Regarding speaker setup, these two speakers are very different from one another. The JBL Partybox 520 has a dual front firing woofers with an exhaust port that shoots out the back and dual front firing tweeters. A pretty basic speaker setup. Whereas the Sony ULT Tower 10 has a single front firing woofer with a front firing exhaust port, dual front firing mid-range drivers, and a total of 4 tweeters. 2 that shoot out the front and 2 that shoot out the back. Now, the Tower 10 also has its ULT feature. ULT 1 is going to increase your bass, and this is the setting that I like to use while indoors, and ULT 2 is going to increase both your bass and the mids and highs on the speaker, and this is the setting that you should be able using while outdoors, because this is also going to increase your sound pressure, so the speaker is going to get louder and your vocals are going to be more prominent. Whereas the JBL has its bass boost, deep and punchy, and personally I prefer deep because I feel that it gives more kick to your bass, whereas with punchy you do get more of a resonance, but I do feel that this does overpower the rest of your music. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into the sound test. Both of these speakers are playing at 75% volume, and the Tower 10 is playing while in ULT 2, whereas with the JBL Partybox 520 we're going to be using the speaker with its bass boost set to deep, and we're also going to be using it while it's plugged in and unplugged.
I took a dive, I didn't know I'd fall so deep into your eyes. I've never been somewhere so sweet. I'm hypnotized, yeah, you put my mind at ease. Yeah, you're divine, I'm thankful that you're mine. Looking at me like people are looking at their phone. I've spent 7 years looking for love that I can hold. Now I know, your love is all I need. Now I know, yeah, your love is all I need. So damn high, I'm hypnotized. Yeah, you put my mind at ease. God, you're divine, I'm thankful that you're mine. Passport, hotel, jet plane. My life won't ever be the same. Got you all up in my brain. I love the way you changed me for the better. Got me through bad weather. I want you all the time. I love the way you looking at me like people are looking at their phone. I've spent 7 years looking for love that I can hold. Now I know, your love is all I need. Now I know, yeah, your love is all I need. Your love is all I need. Yeah, your love is all I need. Your love is all I need. Yeah, your love is all I need.
So when it comes to sound quality, easily I feel that the Sony just sounds a lot more open, a lot more balanced, and it has much stronger mids and highs, so the vocals are a lot more prominent than on the JBL Partybox 520. Whereas the JBL just sounds a lot more narrow by comparison. Now, the thing that the JBL Partybox 520 does have over the Sony is that its bass is more physical, so you feel it more in your chest, whereas with the Sony, its bass also has a good amount of kick to it, but it's more on the audible side. But plainly put, with the Sony, you are going to get higher quality sound thanks to the dedicated mid-range drivers, which just aren't present on the JBL, and it has twice as many tweeters. And when it comes to max volume performance, I think that both of these speakers are good for like a 50% party, and they're both going to be good for commercial use. Think small DJ gigs, medium-sized restaurants, or small events. However, the Sony ULT Tower 10 does get noticeably louder than the JBL Partybox 520. But like I mentioned earlier, if you were to use the JBL Partybox 520 while it's plugged in, you are going to get a performance boost out of it. It is going to get louder and it is going to have more bass, but it still won't compare to the max volume of the Sony ULT Tower 10. But overall, the JBL Partybox 520 sounds great, but with the Sony ULT Tower 10, you are going to get a better quality sound because it sounds more open, more balanced, and you have better instrument separation. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, with both of these speakers, if you have two of the exact same speakers, then you'll be able to wirelessly pair them up and get them to play in left and right stereo mode. But they have to be two of the exact same speakers. Now, the Sony is using Sony's wireless party chain, so you can pair it up to Sony's other speakers that are also using wireless party chain, like a Tower 10, Tower 9, XV800, XV500, or to an XP700 or XP500, or you can also pair it up to any of Sony's smaller speakers that are also using wireless party chain, like the Sony ULT 7, ULT 5, ULT 3, or to the Sony XG500, XG300, XE300, XE200, or to an XP43, XP33, or XP23. The only thing is you cannot connect your Sony ULT Tower 10 to, let's say, the Sony ULT 1 because the ULT 1 is not using wireless party chain. Whereas with the JBL Partybox 520, it is using Auracast, so you can pair it up to other Auracast speakers, like let's say the JBL Partybox Encore 2, Partybox 120, 320, 520, or Ultimate, and you can get them to all play in sync. Or you can also pair it up to JBL's smaller speakers that are also using Auracast, like let's say the Charge 6, Extreme 4, Flip 7, Go 4, or Clip 5. And you can also connect your 520 up to any of JBL's older party boxes that are using TWS, like either an original Encore or Partybox 110, 310, or 710. The only thing is you can only have a total of 2 speakers wirelessly paired to one another. But also keep in mind that you cannot connect your JBL Partybox 520 up to any of JBL's older speakers that are using Party Boost, like either a JBL Boombox 3, Boombox 2, Extreme 4, Charge 5, Pulse 4, Pulse 5, Flip 6, or Flip 5. But also with Auracast, you'll be able to connect your JBL Partybox 520 up to non-JBL speakers that are also using Auracast. And like I mentioned earlier, the Partybox 520 does have that audio out jack, so you can always daisy chain it up to any other speaker, regardless of size or brand, and get them to play in sync. But with all that being said, I think both of these speakers are great, but they are very different from one another. I think the JBL Partybox 520 is a lot more versatile and portable than the Sony ULT Tower 10. It's smaller and lighter, but it also has an easy to remove battery. It also has those XLR inputs, so you can easily plug it into a mixer. It has an audio out jack, and it is using Auracast, so you can pair it up to JBL speakers and non-JBL speakers, and you can pair it up to JBL's party lights if you want. However, with the Sony ULT Tower 10, this speaker does sound better than the JBL Partybox 520 because it sounds more balanced, more open, and there's much better definition in the mids thanks to those dedicated mid-range drivers which just aren't found on the JBL Partybox 520. The Sony ULT Tower 10 also gets noticeably louder than the JBL Partybox 520, but that is to be expected because the Tower 10 is just bigger. Honestly, I think that choosing between these two speakers is going to come down to preference, but if you're looking for something to mainly use in your man cave or at home, I recommend the Sony ULT Tower 10, but if you need something more portable, something more on the go, I do recommend the JBL Partybox 520. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.